You're listening to Revenge of the Drive-In, the podcast where we watch and discuss a drive-in double feature consisting of two films randomly selected from a list of over 1,700. We are brought to you by the Grandma Sophia's Podcast Network, and I'm your host Patrick, and I am joined by...
the handsome young dove, Joshua Ramos.
Of GSC, of course.
Of course.
Josh, you are our first returning guest.
I'm glad to be here. There's no place I'd rather be. I'm fucking super hyped, actually.
All right, yeah. Well, we are talking about Halloween 2 and The Stuff, a couple of 80s horror classics, if you will. And, I was going to originally have you on for a different episode, but I was listening to our, the episode we did to start off the season on Halloween and The House by the Cemetery, and you sounded pretty hyped about Halloween 2, so I didn't want to take this away from you.
Yeah, I mean, Halloween 2 is so goddamn good. I was watching it last night, and it's just so many scenes just hit me like, this is just incredible filmmaking. I had to sit there and think. I've been saying Halloween and Scream are my two favorite horror movies, but I don't know, Halloween 2, I mean,
wow.
There's some absurd parts. There's some parts that are really forgettable, but there's some parts that I truly, truly love. Especially in looking back now in relation to watching Halloween Kills and seeing the parallels and the things that they go for.
Yeah, Halloween Kills follows this formula in a lot of ways, departs in a lot of ways, obviously. But yeah, so we kind of teased our opinions on Halloween 2 in the Halloween episode. You said you loved it, and it sounds like now that you even love it even more than you did then. I said I'm not the biggest fan of it, and I kind of stand by that. I don't think it's great, but, we can get into this as we go through the plot.
Yeah, we can. We can do that, because, I don't know, I'm going to try to change your mind. I think there's some really silly things that happen and set up the franchise, but overall, what it's known for, I think it does very, very, very well.
All right, well, why don't you start us off then? I
mean, Halloween 2, it picks up, it's made 2 years after the original, but it's literally the night of, picks up exactly where Halloween 1 ended. It even shows the same shots for a bit, and then switches the vantage point. Mm-hmm. So we got Loomis, he's lighting up Michael, he says he hits him 6 times, I count 5, I don't know if that first shot hit him.
Yeah, there's an inconsistency
right?
there.
The first shot didn't hit him, I was confused by that. But he says he got him 6 times. There's blood on the ground. Loomis is stunned. Where's this guy at? And it just picks up right from there, and it goes. It goes. They really they're calling the you don't know what death is. He's not human. Like
that's a fun moment there.
It's really
the when the neighbor comes up to him and that's a great.
He's like, is this a joke? I've been trick or treated too many times or some shit. Like
I've been trick or treated to death tonight, which is kind of a weird thing to say.
Nobody talks,
but
like
it sets up. But it sets up the wonderful line. You don't know what death is.
Yeah, I mean, and then right after that, the opening sequence. First, I was like, this is whatever. This is the standard. I forgot that it does the transition to the skull inside the pumpkin, and that was truly freaky as hell.
Overall, the pumpkin is less janky looking too than in the original. The original pumpkin, it's kind of has like a hair lip kind of thing. This looks like just a better jack-o'-lantern, if you will.
I was watching literally just before we did this, I was sitting on the couch watching that Netflix show about like something about the movies we love or something, and I watched the Halloween episode.
Oh, I'll never watch that.
Yeah, I don't know why. I had an hour to kill. And I said, how should I do this? And then my HBO Max...
I had an hour to kill before doing this episode, and I just watched one of the gulags on Shudder, because why not?
I was trying to watch a Sopranos episode, but I did not... the roommate did not update the HBO bill or pay it or some shit, so that needs to be handled at some point.
Okay, yeah. How else are you going to watch Fun Home?
But I was watching that... Halloween documentary, and they said they were struggling to find pumpkins in the original one because they were out of season when they filmed it.
Okay, sure.
So maybe that's why it was janky.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the Halloween theme, because this movie has essentially the same score as the original. It's John Carpenter, obviously, again, John Carpenter is not acting as director on this movie. He wrote it, or co-wrote it, maybe. He's producing, and he's doing the score. Carpenter, when you think of a John Carpenter score, you think of like very synthy like Christine or Escape from New York, very, very synthy scores. The original Halloween was much more piano. There's a little bit of synth, but that's mostly like in the background. Like the driving kind of instrument is just like a traditional piano. And then here, it's kind of like it's just the synth update on like all the tracks that we heard in the original. And I think for the most part, I don't like the sound of them as much, although I do like the Halloween 2 theme that we hear here, mostly because I love like the build up, like the really slow, you just hear that like kind of riff just done really slow and deep a few times before the song really kicks in, and I just think that's really neat.
They were officially in the '80s, so Carpenter really went balls to the walls with the synths, and he's trying to just keep up with the times.
Arguably, no one did it better.
I mean, he still can crush a soundtrack to this day, his old ass.
I wasn't a huge fan of that. I was kind of disappointed by the Halloween Kills soundtrack, but I thought the 2018 Halloween soundtrack was outstanding. I thought that's one of his best scores.
I can get behind that. Halloween Kills was fine. So we start off. Michael's on the run. He's 5, potentially 6, but I don't think so. 6 shots in, and we got these great menacing POV shots. He goes into the old couple's house and steals a knife while the husband was passing out to the Romero movie, Night of the Living Dead, and then the news.
The number one film shown within other films. It's a wonderful what public domain has done for that movie. It just pops up in every movie now.
Yeah, it really does. Like, it really does. But I'm shocked that Michael didn't kill that couple. Like, why?
Yeah.
That was... I try to put myself in his shoes. No easy task for a sane person. And I don't know why he let them rock. Like, there was really no reason. It would have been a fast, easy kill.
Yes.
I've never seen him kind of do something like that. For adults, I should say, because there's been some children.
Yeah, because he leaves the baby.
He leaves the babies
in 2018,
and he leaves the babies in the hospital later on in this flick alone.
That's right. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of that.
I don't know why he let those people go. Like, I found that to be strange writing there.
That's fair, but I like this scene. I think it's almost more effective than if he were to kill them. I love, like, the old lady is just kind of, like, looking away, and then she slides her hand back towards, like, her knife.
It's not a safe knife practice to do that.
No, it's
slide your hand towards the knife without looking.
I mean, it's not like the knife is actively like moving on its own ordinarily. I mean, I don't recommend this knife practice, but I think I think the odds of severely injuring yourself aren't that high normally.
I also find it incredible that on a night of mischief, a Halloween night, that this girl Sally. No, not Sally. Alice, who lives next door to this old couple, just leaves her front door open for him to just walk right in.
Yeah, well,
I live in
out drinking that night. Who knows?
It's just, I cannot imagine leaving my doors unlocked. Like, what's up with this community of white folk?
Well, peaceful Illinois town. Yeah. It doesn't really register with someone who is from the Bronx or someone like myself who lived in not a great neighborhood in Milwaukee. Like, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but hey, it's a simpler time, 78 or 81/78.
But that was a nice little kill, like a little pop up from the side, stab through the chest or throat or whatever he was doing. I love that. It was quick. I was expecting him to come a little bit. It came maybe a second before I expected it. Got me a little jump. I appreciated that.
Right.
And Sally on the phone, she was a great friend. She was like, "What's going on? Where are you?" She didn't hang up. She didn't say, like, "Stop, like, messing with me. Like, I know you're joking." Like, Sally was actually concerned. And I'm sorry that she had to, have that trauma, I guess, when she finds out her friend was murdered by Michael Myers. Until, of course, it gets retconned and then this movie doesn't matter anymore. And then we're at Laurie's being taken away. She's going to the clinic, as they call it. They don't even say hospital, I don't think. Like, vocally, they usually say.
Okay, because the sign says Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. They've got a cool symbol.
The sign,
HMH.
The sign says it, but then the people say clinic a lot for some reason. I never really understood that either.
Those are different things, technically speaking.
Yeah, very, very different things. But then this guy, Jimmy, the ambulance guy, is like instantly in love
Oh yeah, Lance Guest.
with a bloody, passed out woman. Very kind of creepy when you think about it. A lot of
Well, yeah, we got to talk about this too for a second. That the
she's a high school girl.
this is a theme in the Halloween movies. Yes, you just pointed out she's in high school. In Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, we have a character that doesn't exist in this movie, but according to that movie's world, he's a police officer here at this time. He was like in love with her in Halloween Kills. They like hint at some, or not even hint at. They're like talking about how he was like into her, but she was more into Ben Tramer. More on him in a bit, of course, but in the best scene of the movie. But it's like that's weird to me. He's like a cop. He's maybe he's early 20s, but he's a police officer. She's like in high school. And then this ambulance guy too, young guy, sure, but
Pizzagate.
oh no. Well, we had the pedophile line in Halloween with Bob.
Yes.
Where he was talking about taking off Lindsay's clothes.
Yes.
The 6-year-old girl.
I forgot about that, but yes, it always gets buried deep in my brain. Wow.
I was just listening to our episode earlier today, and yeah, you did not let that one go, and I don't blame you. It's a weird moment.
John Carpenter must answer these questions while he's still here with us. So the ambulance guy, the guy Jimmy, he takes them to the clinic, to the hospital, and weirdly enough, the doctor, before he gives her a drug to knock her out, he takes a sample of her blood. Very strange thing. You never see that happen. And I wonder if that's like a foreshadowing to the ridiculous plots of the fourth and the fifth movies. Like I can't quite recall if it
or more the sixth. That's probably if you really had to tie it to a plot, which means there's no real tie.
There can't be I don't know what was going on with that move. The drawing of the blood was so strange. And it lasted more than a few seconds. It made me think what is this for? And then, if the patient's saying, I don't want to go to sleep, is it ethical to knock them out like that? She's not really hysterical. She's not she's not a harm to herself or others. So why are they putting her to sleep?
Right. Yeah. I feel like there are instances where someone requires surgery and they need to be put to sleep for that surgery, and they might protest, but you need to go ahead there. But yeah, what are they doing exactly here? They're
drawing blood and knocking her out.
Although, to be fair, if we're, removing ourselves from the movie a bit and we're looking at Laurie not as Laurie but as Jamie Lee Curtis, I get the impression in this movie that she would not rather do anything but sleep.
She's asleep for most of the movie.
She doesn't seem committed in this movie. I get the sense, and that's why it's great that she's come back to the Halloween series, but I get the sense here in 1981, after she had done not just the original Halloween, but she did Terror Train, Prom Night, maybe one or two other horror movies. I think she was kind of done with this kind of thing, and I think she wanted to be, at this time, I'm guessing, a more serious actress. And then, Trading Places, Fish Called Wanda, she does all those things later. But yeah, I get the sense that she's just she kind of seems like she was just contractually obligated to be here. She doesn't really want to be here. She's wearing a wig too, which looks awful.
It does look awful. It looked awful.
It looks so bad.
Sometimes she's just here so she's not getting fined, But she did fine. Her lack of energy, her lack of emotion can just all be, summed up as her.
It's explained with the plot because she's
all drugged up and
sedated and injured. Yeah. That's true.
She's having a long ass night.
Maybe it's the wig more than anything that's she couldn't even get her hair to be in the same style that it was in 78. She doesn't care that much.
So then we're back into the streets of Haddonfield, and Loomis is out here. He's having a little dick measuring contest with the sheriff. I'm at that place where I stopped taking fucking orders from you. And then Loomis spots some kid on the street wearing a mask and decides that he's Michael Myers.
Yeah.
And he
hang on. We got to go slow here because this is the best scene in motion picture history. This guy is dressed 100% like Michael Myers. The mask, he's even wearing a boiler suit kind of thing. The difference is he appears to be 5'7" probably. whereas Michael's like this big guy. You know, he's not like a giant like he is in some of the sequels. Obviously, we the audience know he's not Michael Myers. Plus, he's got the mask has blonde hair.
Yeah, the mask is a little different. He's got a bag of
Yeah.
candy. Like, that can't be, anything that Michael would ever have.
Well, but Michael could have picked that up at any time. I mean, I don't necessarily blame Loomis for at least initially thinking it's him. I don't blame him for that. It's more just like why is he dressed like this? Like, what is, like, I get it. The William Shatner mask that Michael Myers took was a Halloween mask. Sure, it was available for sale. Michael stole it from the drugstore or whatever. So yeah, the mask was selling. It's less that. It's more like, what's he going as? He's just wearing a boiler suit. It's like he's dressing up as Michael Myers, like he saw the movie.
Maybe it gets meta and meta. That's what inspired
Well, that's
Scream.
not even the best part of the scene, of course.
No, the best part of the scene is the incredible explosion. It was like, TNT or a grenade, more than a grenade, would cause a fire that large. That fire burned that person so fast he was burnt in like less than 30 seconds.
Because Loomis is chasing him, and he wanders out into the middle of the road.
Gets
not really running.
Slammed by a car going what might have been 70 to 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, a police car. And then not only does he get hit by a car, but he gets smashed into a truck, which is in the middle of the road. And my favorite little thing about this scene is when the driver gets out, he's like, oh, I didn't see him. They came out of nowhere. And it's like, so he was just, if he wasn't there, he would have just hit the bus or the truck, excuse me, the van, whatever it was. He would have just hit that going 60 or 70 miles an hour, whether or not he hit this guy. So someone would have died here at any rate.
Yeah, just an incredible filmmaking. Then all of a sudden, and then the next thing you know, the sheriff.
One of the most random scenes out there, and I don't know how intentional the humor is, because I laugh hysterically every time I see this.
Yeah, and then immediately after that, when you're laughing, all of a sudden the sheriff gets told that his daughter was found as one of the dead teenagers, which is
right.
A very sobering moment that, it brings you right back into, damn, Michael's out here fucking up lives, destroying lives, and, he goes off to deal with that, and then we're back in the hospital. Jamie, or Lori, is woken up. She has a cracked bone in her ankle. It's not broken. And Jimmy, lover boy, making eyes at the high school girl, is off to find her a Coke. He promises to get her a Coke. He'll be back eventually.
This is also, or maybe it's not this scene, but it's at some point when she's lying in bed in the hospital. But this is where she learns that the person who attacked her was Michael Myers. And I'm pointing that out because we just talked about the scene where the sheriff learns about his daughter, but that this is obviously a very faithful sequel in that, like, if John Carpenter weren't around, you write a sequel to this movie, even if it takes place, a continuation the night of, you'd probably have it where Laurie knows who Michael Myers is already, and the sheriff already knew his daughter's dead. But then it's like you realize, oh, neither of those things are covered in the first movie. Laurie never has any idea who this guy is, and the sheriff never learns about his daughter. So it's kind of neat that those moments come in this movie, and it kind of makes you think like, oh yeah, I guess we didn't have that in the original. Like I kind of forget about that.
But like right after that happens, one of my favorite things in the movies happens. You get the newscasters and the reporters outside of the scene, and the sheriff pulls up and looks at his daughter and closes her eyes. It's really sad, but
oh yeah, it's well acted too by Charles Cyphers playing the sheriff. I don't think we really talked about him as an actor when we talked about the first Halloween, but he's good.
But the reporter shots, they're just like Scream. They're just like the Scream reporter shots, like
yes.
right on site.
Yeah.
Just talking about what's going on, like, there's people dead, but it's just entertainment. Like, it's so Scream in that moment. I've never really noticed it. And I saw that, I was like, this is Scream. I want to watch Scream.
Also, we've got a cameo here, a blink and you'd miss it cameo, and a cameo where, honestly, if you see it, you could miss it. Because it's not really a cameo, because he's not famous yet. But the cameraman in this scene is Dana Carvey.
No
SNL,
way.
Future SNL star.
I missed it.
Future Mike Myers collaborator, not Michael Myers. And it's weird, but we've got two SNL actors in our movies tonight. Because we got Garrett Morris in this stuff.
The stuff has some crazy actors in it.
Well, yeah, sure.
But then we're back with Loomis again. He's talking about Michael the animal. He admits he was obsessed. I feel like it's the worst thing ever as a doctor to admit that you were obsessed with your patient. I feel like they'd take you right away from him, but this is.
I mean, it worked out okay for Freud.
That is true. That is true.
That was 100 years ago, but whatever.
Then, Michael bumps, or we're back on Michael. He bumps into the boombox kid. He's walking right past people.
Iconic moment there.
He's a regular old dude walking around, and he's headed straight to the hospital.
I always forget the boombox scene comes from this movie because that's one that gets imitated a lot in future sequels.
Yeah, it does.
And almost everything in this series is just borrowed from the original. There are some exceptions, but like almost all of the classic Halloween iconography and everything comes from the original. This is a movie with kind of a lot of sequels that aren't all that ambitious and just kind of do the same thing over and over again. So yeah, there's a couple little moments like that in here where it's like, oh yeah, this kind of goes on to be classic in its own right.
Yeah, now we're introduced to the hospital regulars. We got Jimmy's partner, the kind of sleazy, kind of scumbaggy kind of guy. I don't even know if they even use his name.
Bud.
So I thought they were just calling him Bud, like, hey, Bud.
Oh yeah, well he's credited as Bud.
Bud kind of sucked, but I think he was hooking up with Karen, banging out Karen. And Jimmy gets mad at him because he's not taking the people's death seriously. And Bud's like, whatever, man. There's always going to be dead bodies rolling through. That's life. Just kind of a nihilistic kind of douchebag.
Bud's kind of the equivalent of Bob in the original because Bob was the one that, as we pointed out with the pedophile line, he joked about things that he shouldn't have joked about in that movie.
That is true. Correct. That's a good parallel. And then we got Michael in the hospital. He's looking around, seeing I think he's kind of just like surveying the scene. He's by the babies. He's counting the nurses. He's figuring out how many people he's got to kill. We got that one black nurse, Mrs. What is her name? Mrs. something. She's
Octavia Spencer.
Imagine.
Well, no, it's Octavia Spencer in the Rob Zombie Halloween.
That is true. Yes, she does.
I can't remember which.
In the first one.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 doesn't take place in the hospital. I've seen those movies only once, so I don't remember them too well.
The second one is he's like on the run for 2 to 3 years, and then he decides to come back. And
I just remember he shows up at a strip club in Halloween 2, in that Halloween 2, I believe.
So then the phone lines are cut. Mr. Garrett, the portly security guard man, has to go investigate what's going on, and we have one of the best kills. Like, I keep thinking this guy's gonna die. He's hearing things. He's in a place with tools that could be used as weapons. He's looking behind doors. He's real paranoid. He's telling the girl on the radio to go to the sheriff, and she can't tell shit because the frequencies are all messed up or something like that. And then Garrett gets a little hammer through the head. I really thought he was gonna, this is the exact opposite of the kill before when he killed Alice in her crib, where it happened a second before, I thought, where I just kept waiting, and at some point, my guard kind of went down because I just kept waiting for too long, and then it got me with another good jump, and I loved it. It's one of the best kills, and I feel like it's one of those kills that also gets repeated in later movies where someone goes into investigates and some white guy, I think it's Halloween, Curse of Michael Myers, and the guy goes in his basement. Very similar kill there, I feel like.
Oh, well, I mean, his head explodes in that, so it's a little bit different.
So then Michael's just, biding his time. He's making his way around. They have the jacuzzi death where Bud kills Karen. Well, first he kills Michael. Well, Michael kills Bud.
Yeah, Bud doesn't.
Michael kills Bud.
Kill Karen.
They're making out in the jacuzzi in the hospital. I didn't know hospitals had jacuzzis. I think they called it.
I think it's like a rehab.
It's like a therapy thing, they say.
Yeah, I think that's the implication.
Michael turns up the heat. Karen's like, go check it out. And Bud's like, the heat's just me because he's a sleazy douchebag kind of joke. And then he goes to check it out. And you kind of see Michael strangle Bud in the background. You don't get to see the violence itself. It's kind of in the foreground, the background. I think is a really nice touch. And then he comes in and, lays his hand on Karen's shoulder. And she's kissing it. And then I don't know how she doesn't realize the hand's dirty and disgusting looking, and I assume rough skin. And then she looks up, and then next thing you know, he's dunking her face into the hot tub, and it's too hot. It burns her.
Yeah, scalds her. It's there's a moment like that in Deep Red, the Dario Argento movie, where someone gets like scalded to death in a hot
I
bath.
don't know if he put her down there long enough for her to die that fast, but that's just my take.
No, that's probably true, but what do I know? I would imagine there's very serious injuries at the very least.
And then that's when we get to the really dumb part about the movie that would also make the franchise go kind of dumb when Michael broke into the school and he
Yeah,
wrote the
yeah.
Sam Hain shit on the wall. And it's like,
Well, okay. Look, let my Irish ass correct you here. It's pronounced Samhain, but you
oh,
wouldn't know that watching this movie because Dr. Loomis calls it Sam
he
Hain.
calls it Sam Hain straight up.
Yeah, which he's obviously he's a British actor. Maybe he's intentionally disrespecting the Irish. Who knows? But no, yeah, it's. I think they say it right in Halloween 3. I think it's been a while since I've seen that movie, but yeah, it's kind of distracting that he says it wrong. But yeah, why does he write it on the board? It really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well,
Like, what's
who's
he?
the message for?
Yeah,
Like, what's that all about? But we get the cool flashbacks of Laurie in her catatonic state, kind of recalling that, Michael's her brother. She, like, visited him when he was very small, and he looks back at her with
yeah,
this creepy ass smile. But, like, how did she suppress that memory to that point? Like,
yeah. That's a
I like to think I
yeah,
understand
because
trauma.
she's not like a baby.
No,
She's not a baby.
she would have been, like, not that much younger. She would have probably been, like, 10 or something.
Well, yeah. When she sees, I can't remember the scene that well, but I think she's like maybe like 5 when she goes there. But yeah, I guess I don't know what's she like 5 years younger than Michael, something like that, 4 or 5 years younger.
No, yeah, I think 4 years.
Okay, so she's born after he's locked up, and she goes and visits him for some reason.
Why?
I guess this is before the Myers parents completely gave up on him. I mean, we obviously know Loomis gives up apparently before they do. Loomis right away is just like that. Yeah, he was evil. I could tell right away. But it also kind of begs the question: did they say what happens to the Myers parents? Because Lori gets adopted.
I think they died.
What
They
happens to
died in an
them?
accident.
Did they die?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I just couldn't remember that. I'm sure you're
it
right.
was a car crash, I believe. Which is also the excuse that she
Just
used in Halloween H2O.
I was gonna say it's just like in Baby Driver.
Wow, what a reference.
This is a better movie than this.
Oh, that's a
Come on, it's Baby Driver.
wild
It's a good
take.
movie.
Wild take. But then, Mike,
It's how is that wild?
because this is Halloween 2, Patrick.
That's the problem. That's the problem. It's not Halloween 1.
Halloween 2, in my opinion, is a top 3 Halloween movie. Maybe top 4.
I would say it's top 4 or 5. I would say obviously nothing for me compares with the original.
Obviously.
I would say 2018 and Halloween 3 are kind of vying for that number 2 spot.
Halloween 3 is an abomination.
No, it's great. It's just different. And then Halloween 4 and Halloween 2 are vying for that number 4 and 5 spot.
I would say Halloween 1, Halloween 2018, Halloween 2, 1981, and then I'll throw in Halloween H2O with my man Josh Hartnett and LL Cool J.
I enjoy H2O.
H2O is great.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I
H-
think I do
H2O is
like
great.
H2O more than Halloween 2 and 4. I think, but
H2O
it's
is great.
probably not a better movie. I just enjoy it a bit more.
It's something, it's like so 90s and so like 90s done, and it's like really good. It really takes me
The
back.
worst Michael Myers mask
It's
ever.
so bad.
It's like CG in a few shots. It looks so bad.
But then, so we're in the hospital. He killed Bud. He killed Karen. Now, one of the nurse finds Doctor dead and stabbed in the eye before she could even do anything about it. Michael's there in the blackness. I love how he just pops up out of the blackness. Like, it really makes me
Hmm.
look around like my crib sometimes and wonder, like, yeah, was there someone standing in the dark? Should be making me paranoid as fuck. But I love it. And he killed the nurse the same way. Needle through not directly in her eye. It's more like in her temple,
Yeah, Temple.
and she goes down. Jimmy, he's been running around. He looks for a nurse. He finds the black lady nurse. She's bled out all over the fucking floor. And Jimmy falls and he gets knocked out. And we finally learn that Lori is the sister. Dr. Loomis is ordered back to, I think, the hospital by the governor. and he finds out from his old colleague that Michael had a sister. There was a file that even you didn't have access to.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know why they would do. Why, I don't know what the big conspiracy was to hide this girl. Like, unless they expected her to
Yeah.
want him to one day break out. Like, that part didn't really make sense either.
Yeah, Loomis was probably the only one who suspected that kind of thing. I think everyone else at Smith's Grove Sanitarium probably thinks Loomis is a little crazy, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he is a little crazy, more than a little crazy.
But yeah, so Laurie as Michael Myers' sister. This seems like a very post Empire Strikes Back twist, you know? I understand why it's there. I understand John Carpenter writing the script. He's like, listen, there's no plot left. There's literally no plot in this movie, so we kind of have to have some kind of development somewhere. And I mean, he did what he could, but I also think the newer movies choosing to ignore this is not a bad idea, because I think this is kind of a lame plot development in my opinion. I don't like hate it the way some people do, but it's kind of stupid, and especially when you factor in like, well, Laurie had these suppressed memories and what Laurie was born after he was like locked up. Like it's just weird.
It is weird. It's not the best done. I don't hate it. I also don't love it. I thought it was fine. I thought it kind of made sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I like the idea of Michael being a more random kind of killing machine, or more just unmotivated, I guess.
As soon as the sequel, was centered around him going to the hospital to seek her out, there had to be some sort of connection there at that point, I think.
That's true.
But that's
that's
what's cool about
true.
Halloween Kills, is that they're like, oh, haha, there is no connection, bitches. And
Well, that's what kind of wasn't great about Halloween 2018, is that Michael had no reason to seek out Laurie, so they kind of had that stupid twist with the doctor there to bring him to her. Like, that didn't really work.
yeah, that was weird. That was a weird part of the flick. There were so many kills in Halloween 2018.
There are so many more, I feel like, in Halloween Kills,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
yeah.
yeah, they really ramped up the killing in these ones.
Halloween Kills was like if Lucio Fulci directed a Halloween movie, going back to our House by the Cemetery discussion.
I really enjoyed a lot of the kills in Halloween Kills. I just thought the plot was silly.
Oh, the movie's got many problems.
Laurie, she knows Michael's onto her. She faked her bed to make it look like she was in it. It was just pillows. He stabbed it. He knows that she knows. She's all over the place. She's outside, hiding in the car. Jimmy comes into the car. He's concussed. He passes out. Michael's alerted to the presence. Loomis eventually shows up at the hospital, realizing that Michael was going to go there to track his sister down. Jamie's outside, or Laurie's outside, banging on the door to get in, because Michael's walking her down very fast. And she gets in just in time. Loomis, once again, he opens the clip. All shots hit Michael. He goes down. The deputy he's with, Loomis is saying, don't go near him. Guy's like, he's not breathing. Fucking Michael slices his goddamn throat open.
That's a neat shot. I like the way I don't know, I like the way Michael moves in that scene.
Michael's the coolest moving slasher ever. It's no debates. The shape just is so cool.
I don't know. I like Matthew Lillard falling down and tripping over everything.
I do love Ghostface's frantic run. His very frantic runs. But there's something so like, I don't know, if I saw Ghostface, like, I would know that I would like get into like a scuffle with them. Like, they're so frantic, and like their movements are so anxious and like fearful of what they're doing at the same time. Like, it just seems so much more human.
There's a visible craziness to the way the best Ghostface actors move.
But the way Michael moves, it's just so not human. Like, humans just don't move that way.
Sure.
And it's awesome. But then, Michael chases Laurie and Loomis down, and she shoots his eyes blind, which is, again, I don't know, you shoot someone in the face 2 times, like, you think that they would die.
Yeah, this scene, oh man, this is kind of rough. Apparently she shoots him, I guess she shoots his eyes out, like a la Christmas Story, but then he just, like, starts blindly swinging the scalpel around, and it just goes on forever. It's kind of...
It goes on
kind of a lame
way too
climax.
Long. And then Loomis sets the gas.
Well, because they have this back and forth of, like, when he's getting closer to Laurie, Loomis starts getting his attention, and then he gets, like, closer to Loomis, and, like, Laurie distracts him a bit, and it's just like, I don't know.
And then Laurie runs out, Loomis lights the gas. explosion. Laurie gets hit by the and she didn't get that far before he lit it up, and then
No, that is a great explosion. That's a great little stunt, I guess.
yeah, and then you think it's over, and Michael's walking out the fire, and you're like, holy shit, what the hell is it gonna fucking take to kill this guy? And as soon as you say that, he falls to the ground and he quote unquote dies because we never really check up on him ever again after that. And the credits roll, and that's Halloween 2, a nice 91 or so minute classic film, not as good as the original.
Sure.
Very flawed, but some great kills. The jacuzzi kill, great kill.
I like the way Michael dies here. Dies in quotes because Michael's died 4,500 times at this point. But like, I think this is my number 2 favorite Michael death. Nothing tops the beheading in H2O. And that's some of the worst retconning in sequel history and in Resurrection, of course. But yeah,
oh my,
I don't know. I mean, Michael on fire just falling to the ground is pretty cool.
I mean, I thought it was great. It kind of goes with the end of Halloween 2018 in a way.
Yeah, because he burns and that. I mean, he disappears at some point, but yeah, he's in a burning building. Sure.
Doesn't he burn in Halloween Resurrection as well?
Oh yeah, I guess. Well, he gets.
The
he gets
fire.
kung fu kicked to death. But yeah, I forget about the burning because I just remember the kung fu kicks. But yes, you're right.
So the theme for Michael is fires are what takes him down.
Yeah, but then it'll just pop up again. So who cares? Like they don't even wait until the next movie after Resurrections. He opens his eyes in that movie.
Yeah, at the end they take him to the morgue. Yeah, and then I think there's an extended cut scene of him actually killing those people. And they show it.
Yeah, well, that movie never even got a sequel, I guess, so who cares?
Crazy that they kill Laurie Strode in Halloween Resurrection.
Yes, which is the second time she's died in the series, because she dies sometime between Halloween 2 and 4, off screen.
How much bag do you think she got for that little role?
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. Well... I love that movie. You're like watching that movie in the opening credits, and it's like Jamie Lee Curtis, and you're like, okay, Jamie Lee Curtis again. And then it's Busta Rhymes. You're like, holy shit, it's Busta Rhymes.
The original rapper's
such a
actor.
weird movie. Well, they went 2 movies in a row because they had LL Cool J in H2O.
They really knew that. They know black people like horror movies. They know what they got to do. If you look at
the Leprechaun in the Hood movies,
look at
that's how those
the new
movies,
Halloween movies have so many black characters.
Well, yeah, there's the sheriff.
You're like you would think Haddonfield is like 50% black the way that it's portrayed.
Yeah, two of the villagers or whatever, 2 of the angry mob.
Yeah, like there's so many black people. Like it's nuts to me. They really go for it. Like Haddonfield is a black place in the new Halloween movies. It's like living in Dorchester. Not that means anything.
Is it that
to you.
miserable?
It's never miserable when there's fellow blacks in all cap around.
I'm just talking about mass holes.
The only mass holes that I've encountered are people who are going to or from the Red Sox games absolutely fucking hammered.
Of course.
Like
yes.
they get so drunk, it's incredible. Like falling down the train stairs, and it's pathetic. Like I can't imagine being that drunk.
Well, speaking of
like
getting very,
6:30
very
p.m.
drunk, we've got to return to Halloween 2, the best scene in the movie, which was the scene where where the police car runs over an innocent child and murders him.
Ben Tramer.
We didn't even talk about how that is revealed to be Ben Tramer, and to me, it's so funny. For a number of reasons. One, Ben Tramer, as I mentioned, like he gets mentioned a couple times in the original Halloween. He's some guy that's interested in Laurie, who one of Laurie's friends told that she was also interested in him, even though she's not. But that's all we know about Ben Tramer. He absolutely does not need to be in Halloween 2, and to me it's just so funny that this one guy that gets killed in like the funniest way possible just happens to be connected to Laurie in some like small way. It's just so stupid, but really funny in a way, and it's like I think of too like how the more and more like nostalgic movies like sequels and reboots get too. This is something kind of ahead of its time, because now in like the new Halloween movies, it's like, oh, everyone is like someone in the original movie or something. Like Lonnie shows up in Halloween Kills, like who's the kind of the bully kid who's in like one scene in the original Halloween. Like now he's a character just because we hear his name, and it's like, yeah, I love Ben Tramer incident. And then they also, because well, when they have the dead body, they don't really think it's Michael, because they think when they're doing the autopsy, and as you mentioned, it's a severely burned body, they're thinking he was about 17 years old. Then some kids come up to the sheriff and to Dr. Loomis, and he's like, "Hey, have you seen our friend Ben Tramer? We haven't heard from him, and he left the party. He was really drunk when he was going home." So you have this. So it's not just that Donald Pleasance was chasing down some like teenager who's completely disconnected from the Michael Myers storyline. He's chasing down a drunk teenager, which makes it so much funnier to me.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man.
Like, Loomis got away with a lot. He got away with a lot.
But as I'm saying, Loomis isn't even the guy that kills him. That guy, that police car without his sirens on, going 75 down a down a suburban street, is the
25
one
mile
that
per
takes him
hour
out.
street. He came out of nowhere.
The very street that Michael Myers got yelled at for speeding in the last movie when he was going like 30. Remember that?
Yeah, speed kills.
Speed kills, yeah. Well, it does. That pays off. That whole line is set up for Halloween 2.
It might have been.
I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't. Halloween 2 was never really planned by John Carpenter until he needed to write it, you know?
Sometimes the best art is made that way.
So, you are a big fan of this movie.
I love this movie.
All right. I don't. Now, some of the scenes are good. I'm not denying that. There's some neat shots. But overall, I just don't find this movie nearly as effective or as, like, moody and atmospheric. Like, I love the slow pace of the original, and we have just these shots of Michael in the clotheslines or behind a hedge, you know, just looking, and how he's, like, always in the background. I love that kind of stuff, and that's why I kind of like the beginning of this movie, when, like, I like the scene when he sneaks into the old lady's house, and I like that kind of stuff because it's, like, slow and effective. And I just don't like the hospital stuff that much. I don't know what it is.
You don't like the jacuzzi kill?
I mean, that's okay. I think, it sounds silly saying this right after now that we have Halloween Kills, but this movie is a lot more violent than the original Halloween, which, of course, not necessarily a bad thing. The original Halloween is very much not about the kills. And I feel like this movie is more about the kills, and that's fine. You know, that's kind of what the Friday the 13th movies are, but those are also kind of just schlock, and this movie kind of coming from, you know, kind of as a sequel to a film that was so expertly done, you kind of hope for some more, I don't know, lack of a better word, like integrity to the film. It just feels like this movie's kind of cashing in on, like, Friday the 13th and, like, Tom Savini and, like, the more extreme kills and stuff. And it's not like it reaches the level of, like, some of the great Friday the 13th deaths or anything, but I mean, whatever.
This movie definitely works better as a double feature.
Yeah, because it is such a direct sequel, and like I said, it's very faithful, which is great that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill return in some capacity.
The only thing I would change about this movie is I would get rid of that Sam Wayne shit.
Yeah, because that ultimately doesn't pay off. I mean, there's talk of Samhain in Halloween 3, but it has obviously no connection to this movie. And then it sort of comes back in Halloween 6, but again, Halloween 6 is a disaster for many, many reasons. So yeah, that doesn't really go anywhere. I'll agree with that. I think just watching this movie, I really miss the direction of John Carpenter, you know? It's great that he's here. It's great that he's doing the score. It's great that he's writing the script, but he's, at the end of the day, he's a great director. And, you know, how many Rick Rosenthal movies have you seen?
No fucking clue.
You've seen at least 2, because he did Halloween Resurrection. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. I don't know what else he did, but yeah, I don't know who this guy is, but he did do Halloween Resurrection.
Yeah, I've seen none of his movies besides Halloween movies.
All right. Well, have you seen any Larry Cohen movies?
Larry Cohen movies.
Other than The Stuff, of course. This is a transition, in case you didn't know.
The Stuff was awesome.
All right, you're a Stuff fan.
It was entertaining. I was never bored. I
Yeah,
was never fully grow. I was never like, this is completely disgusting, or it was
sure.
nothing
Yeah,
off-putting.
you're comparing it to House by the Cemetery. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
see.
mean that movie had me all fucked up. But this is the first Larry Cohen movie as well. Maybe I've seen A Return to Salem's Lot once upon a time.
Oh, I never saw that. Yeah, I've seen a handful of Larry Cohen movies. I've seen Black Caesar, seen Q the Winged Serpent. I've seen didn't he write like I never saw it, but he wrote Phone Booth, I think. He didn't direct it.
The film Phone
The
Booth?
Yeah, the Colin Farrell movie, right?
Oh shit, he did.
I get Phone Booth and Secret Window mixed up. The Colin Farrell's the Phone Booth one, right?
Colin Farrell
Secret Window's Johnny Depp.
that is both correct. Phone Booth is awesome.
Yeah, because Larry Cohen's more of a. I mean, he directed a number of movies, and a number of which I would say are really good. But he was really more of a writer, and he had a number of screenplays that were adapted to films that he didn't direct or anything like that. I think he created a couple of relatively successful television shows. So he's an accomplished writer. He's an accomplished filmmaker. He's a classic independent filmmaker, DIY New York City guy.
So it's all about shout out to the BX.
Famously in Q the Winged Serpent, he had scenes where he didn't really have permission to shoot scenes of people with prop guns atop like the Chrysler Building or whatever. It's the Chrysler Building in the movie. I don't know where they actually shot it, and they just like have these like guns going off and these sounds, and he didn't tell anyone about it, and so there were people like on the street freaking out because they thought there was like the Son of Sam kind of thing. So yeah, that's that classic DIY independent film spirit that you see a little bit of that in the stuff. And the stuff is, it's actually kind of a shame we're doing this with Halloween 2, because I don't know if you thought of this, but the stuff is kind of a perfect pairing with Halloween 3.
You're very right in that sense. The consumerism criticisms and shit.
Yeah, the both films are very like anti-capitalist. I think the stuff a bit more satirically and a bit more comedically than Halloween 3. Halloween 3 just seems kind of
Why
more
couldn't
cynical.
they just name it something else besides Halloween
Well,
3?
okay, that's an entirely different conversation than to whether or not Halloween 3 is good. I mean, I'll give you that.
We need
But I think Halloween 3 is a good movie, though.
we need the podcast on why they named it Halloween 3 when it had no business being named Halloween 3.
What about all the Cloverfield sequels, though? I mean, where the spirit of Halloween 3 is still alive and well today. As far as
Cloverfield
like
is one of the most
titling things.
inconsistent franchises ever because
It's because it's not a franchise. It's been shoehorned into a franchise. It has no business being one.
10 Cloverfield Lane is awesome.
It is. It's a very good movie. Paradox is not good,
Have you seen
but neither of them are really Cloverfield movies. That's the thing.
Paradox sucks. Have you seen Underwater with Kristen Stewart?
I saw it on a plane, so I didn't really have the best experience of it, but I have technically seen it, yes.
Apparently, the original plan was to have the twist ending instead of it being like the giant monster from the Lovecraft shit. It was going to be the Cloverfield monster.
Well, I think at one point, because it's J.J. Abrams' production company, I think at one point Overlord was going to be a Cloverfield movie as well.
It was.
Which I'm glad they didn't sully. That's a great movie. I'm glad they didn't sully that with the Cloverfield
You can't just
label.
be throwing labels on shit just to do it.
Anyways, so the stuff is a bit like Halloween 3. It's conspiracy heavy plot, kind of anti-corporate, anti-consumerism kind of. This is definitely more of a comedy than Halloween 3. This is kind of a sci-fi horror comedy, I guess. It's
a good,
really
good
a
description.
pretty unique movie. It's I can't think of too many other movies rather, where it's got a anti-capitalist message and still the right-wing militia end up being heroes,
I mean,
how many movies can you think of that have that?
This is Joe Rogan's favorite movie, obviously. I mean, that's why I liked it. Like, the genre was fucking different. Like, it was very different.
Yes.
I kept expecting something. Like, I kept thinking, like, oh, like, they're gonna show that the government knows that this bad thing is happening. I didn't think they were gonna have, like, this, like, entirely government angle and, like, this corporate, like, spy kind of guy is the main character. Like, I didn't foresee that happening. And I kept waiting for it to switch, and it never... after a while, I was waiting like 45 minutes. I'm like, all right, I'm halfway through this movie. There's going to be no switch. Like, if this is the guy.
Yeah, this is sort of Halloween 3 meets Invasion of the Body Snatchers meets, I don't know, meets Q the Winged Serpent? I don't know. But anyways, we start off, the movie kind of just starts. It's a little weird. There's this guy who's at like a quarry or some kind of like digging thing. I don't know. And he finds something like bubbling out of the ground. Some white thing, kind of like fluffernutter, sort of, marshmallowy kind of thing. And he starts eating it. And he's like, wow, this is delicious. And then just like, that's the setup. Because this guy, whoever he is, has gone on to make this, which they just call the stuff, into a worldwide brand that has basically replaced ice cream.
Yep.
Yeah, really quickly too. I mean, and then so the entire plot, the main character of the movie is Mo Rutherford. His name isn't Mo, but they call him Mo.
My friends call
he
me
claims, Mo. because every time they give me something or every time they give me money, I always want Mo. He says that like 3 or 4 times. It's great. And he's played by Michael Moriarty, who's doing like a kind of a weird kind of charming southern accent for whatever reason. It's very different from other movies I've seen him in because I don't know where I kind of assume he's from New York because he's in a lot of Larry Cohen movies, but I don't know. He's not from the South to my knowledge. But the reason he comes in because all of these like ice cream company CEOs are threatened by the stuff and they can't even figure out what's in the stuff. So they hire this
industrial
corporate saboteur.
Spy. Yeah,
industrial spy to basically just figure out information on the stuff. And they don't really give him a lot of, detail on what they want him to do. And so he kind of ends up acting very independently. Like, he's not supervised in any way. He kind of just does whatever the hell he wants. And then there's also another plot. There's this young boy named Jason, who's probably 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there, who opens the fridge one day, and, his family the fridge is filled with the stuff, which are carried in these little pint tubes.
Enough is never enough.
Enough is never enough, yeah. That's a great little slogan. Bet you can't eat just one, basically, of the horror film world. But yeah, he sees it move, and he's like, okay, this is disgusting. I saw it move. I don't, and he's trying to convince his family, his older brother, his parents, that, hey, that's not good. Don't eat it. But they don't believe him. They don't accept it, and they love the stuff. So we've got 2 plots here. We've got Mo doing his investigation and Jason kind of finding ways to not end up eating it because his family keeps wanting. They eventually ground him because he won't eat it and stuff like that. It's kind of weird, kind of absurd.
Yeah,
because the stuff is a dessert, so it's like you should probably be grateful that your young boy doesn't want to eat it.
well, it's low in calories, so it's not even.
That's true.
It's not like a true dessert,
Yeah, I guess technically, yeah. But they don't really know what's in it is the problem, obviously. It was apparently rushed through the approval by the FDA or whatever, and that everyone who approved it has, like, disappeared or gone missing or just, like, left. There's a few lines about that.
It's FDA approved, but nobody knows what the ingredient is. It's protected, like, the same way the Coke is.
That's a fun line. That's a fun little, like, acknowledgement. Like, yeah, the same way Coca-Cola has a secret formula. We don't actually know what's in the stuff. Or you could say, the Colonel's secret, is it 11 spices, herbs and spices, or whatever, however many herbs and spices the Colonel has?
You think I know because I fucking have dark skin?
No, I'm just saying, like, well, first of all, KFC has completely lost its place in American consciousness, I feel like. Chick-fil-A has completely surpassed it, right?
I don't even like Chick-fil-A. Popeyes is the shit. I'll still bangs with KFC.
Popeyes, I just don't have Popeyes around me. I would love to have it.
They got the Megan Thee Stallion sauce now. Well, I also don't have Popeyes. I don't think there's a Popeyes inside Boston, which is... racist in its own way.
Yeah, well, it's Boston. What do you... They are racist. That's their thing.
It's a crazy place to live.
Anyways, Mo meets with one guy who's, like, from the team that approved the stuff or something. He meets with Danny Aiello, the pizzeria owner from Do the Right Thing.
Yes.
This is a big movie for Italian American character actors because these are like the only roles I've seen each of these two guys in where they're not playing like explicitly Italian American characters. Because we also get what's his name?
Abe.
Oh well, Abe. I wasn't thinking of Abe. Yeah, Abe Vigoda has a cameo, but there's also the guy from Goodfellas, Paulie.
Oh, Paulie's in there too.
Paul Sorvino.
Yes.
He plays the right wing. The right-wing militia leader who has my favorite line of the movie.
So we gotta get on the phone and let everyone know.
No, it's not that. I love the line when he says something about like the American military is undefeated, and then the little boy Jason.
What about Vietnam?
Jason's like, well, what about Vietnam? And he just like completely straight faced is like, we lost that war at home, son. It's a hilarious line.
Like really had to pause there. Classic shit.
Yeah, that's my favorite line of the movie. He's got some other fun lines. That was
like some American. That was like a Independence Day vibes. That whole guy was giving me like that fake ass president from Independence Day.
Okay, yeah. Except I like that with Jason though. They're clearly poking fun at him in a way.
Clearly.
I mean, he also ends up being a hero, which is weird, but we'll talk about that. So, anyways, Mo meets with Danny Aiello, and Danny Aiello says that, like, hey, we don't really know what's in it, but we did, nobody appears to, and then at first he's like, wait a second, you're not telling me someone got sick, did they? And he's worried because he eats it all the time, and more importantly, his dog eats it all the time. His dog, who is that a Doberman?
I don't know what kind of dog it was, but that scene was weird as shit.
Yeah, because it was like the second after, once Mo leaves, the dog starts acting crazy, and then I guess eats him. But before it eats him or rips his neck open, whatever he does to him, he attacks him. But we get like, it's not just the dog. We get like monster stuff in the dog's mouth going on. It's some interesting effects.
It was giving me The House by the Cemetery. Like that shit.
Why do you say that?
It's just so strange and like weird and uncomfortable to watch.
It's not that uncomfortable. I mean,
it was slowly giving, but then it went back to being a solid movie.
Yeah, it's not the guy stabbing the bat 45,000 times, just
ridiculous
slipping over his own blood.
Ridiculous shit.
So Mo also meets with the woman who's in charge of like the Stuff's marketing campaign. And this is where I like some of the details here because he meets her on like a commercial shoot, or maybe it's even a photo shoot. I can't remember. I mean, they have like models walking the runway with their stuff, but I love like the logo of the stuff, like the colors. It feels very much like a real product. I feel like they put a lot of effort into everything, even though we see a little bit of the television commercial later, which is like a thing on like the Where's the Beef. They have like a Where's the Stuff, which I'm assuming that's the same lady as the Where's the Beef commercials, but I don't know. Abe Vigoda's also sitting at the table for some reason.
Making money, man. He's showing up to make money.
No, well, of course.
I saw that, and I wrote down in my notes, I was like, old man looks like the dude from Godfather, and I looked at the credits, and I was like, holy shit, it is the guy from the Godfather.
Does he even say anything? I think he's just sitting there.
I think he got one line off, maybe.
Did he get one line? Oh, yeah, because he probably says, because the dinner gets served, he probably says, like, something, and then she goes, where's the stuff, But I like that they put a lot of effort into making this look and feel like a real product, and I think that works really well for the satire, but also just the believability, for lack of a better word, of this movie. I mean, a lot of it, it's an absurd movie in so many ways, but, it's got a tiny bit of believability there.
The absurd part when the kid's in the grocery store just
I love that
destroying
scene.
Everything, like going balls to the wall, just destroying all the stuff while people just stand there and watch. Like, talk about absurd and unbelievable.
My favorite part of that scene, because that's when, Jason starts tearing down every, the stuff related display at the grocery store. He starts he takes the stuff out of like a kid's hand who's like sitting in the grocery cart and stuff. The stuff is so popular that it's displayed in like 3 or 4 different locations in the grocery store. I think that's a neat detail. But my favorite part about that scene is that there's a brief cut to like the two grocery store employees who are like setting up the display, and they just go like, "Oh shit," or something like that. I love that.
Maybe something like that has happened before.
Oh yeah, maybe. I wasn't even thinking of that, but I was just thinking of...
You're not thinking about the larger cinematic universe of the stuff?
No, I was just thinking I have worked at a grocery store before, and I can imagine some kid running around wrecking all my hard work, and it's just like, fuck you, kid.
I too have worked in a grocery store. I hope to avoid such a thing again. Those terrible times.
Yeah, that was probably it was definitely my least favorite job I've ever had, but whatever.
McDonald's was probably worse for me.
So Mo, what's the name of the PR woman? I have it written down somewhere.
I don't know. PR woman.
Nicole. Because it's I didn't write her name down at first because it doesn't seem like she's going to be a really important character. He just kind of meets her. And he's doing his charming Southern accent thing. He's lying about where he's coming from. He claims he's trying to hire her for like some other company. Really, he's just trying to find out any information on, if the PR team knows what the stuff actually is. Turns out she doesn't. But you don't get the sense that she's going to be a really important character. But she like shows up later, and she is important.
Yeah, she got stuff done. Also, the forced love interest.
Yeah. A little forced. So again, kind of Halloween 3-ish.
Yeah. It's just not a good movie, that Halloween 3.
No, don't say that. Don't say that. So, eventually Mo heads down to some town in Virginia where they tested the stuff. And this is like a ghost town. There's like one person there or 2 people there. It's just like a really weird situation. He's trying to figure out what happened because it's almost like, I don't know, like The Crazies, the George A. Romero movie. There's like something weird happened here. And then we meet arguably the best character of the movie. We meet Chocolate Chip Charlie, played by Garrett Morris. I believe he was an inaugural cast member of Saturday Night Live. He was definitely on in the early days.
Legend.
He's a lot of fun in this role. He seems to be, he's just goofing off. He's having a good time. He claims to have like his fists are registered as like lethal weapons or something.
He's out of control good. He's electric. He's throwing He's throwing 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. 100 on the black.
Yeah.
That's not a pun about his skin color. I'm talking about the outside part of the plate where it's hard to get your bat around to, or the inside part for that matter. But anyways, Chocolate Chip Charlie is this guy who was forced out of his own company because of the stuff. The other board members really liked the stuff, and he's like, no, we got to do this thing, and they're like, no, we don't want you, we want the stuff. So he's forced out of it. So he's basically doing the same thing that Mo is doing, except he hasn't hired out like the other ice cream companies. He's doing the dirty work himself.
Yeah, he just wants to know what the fuck is going on with this stuff. He's on the case.
And then we get like a scene where the 2 of them are like jointly questioning this guy at like was it a hardware store or something?
Yeah.
Gas station? It's something like that. Like, again, there's only like a couple people in this town, so they're questioning him, and then he leaves for a moment, and then apparently gets killed by the stuff. Yeah. And we gotta talk about how the stuff actually works.
So what do you think is up with the stuff? Does it eat you out? Like hollows you out kind of thing? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I wasn't even talking in that sense. I'm just basically saying it's basically the Blob. The way it moves around and just covers you, and then, I don't think it's too important because we learned soon enough that, I guess maybe we saw it with the dog, but if you eat the stuff, it can eventually control you from the inside. And if you don't eat it, but you get like a big tub of it near you, it can just eat you. It's really weird, but it's basically it's the Blob meets Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It can turn its people into zombies, basically, like a hive mind almost, or it can just eat you itself. We see the zombie part really well with Jason's family because they lock him in his room until he eats the stuff, and there's a fun scene when instead of eating the stuff, he ends up eating shaving cream. But yeah, it's pretty creepy. And then eventually the Jason's family like chases after him and everything.
One of the funniest fucking scenes, and they chase him out the crib.
Yeah, because that's when Mo
And then
and
Mo just
Nicole.
shows up and knows to save him.
Yeah, well, Mo did hear because he was talking to, I don't know if it was, I don't think it was Nicole. I think it was one of the corporate ice cream guys, maybe. But they pointed out that, like, hey, there's this news story of this kid in, where was he? This kid somewhere who freaked out and attacked all the stuff in the grocery store. And then so they kind of, like, figure, like, okay, we need to help that kid. But then I love the perfect timing of Mo showing up right when he's being chased out of his own home by his family is just perfect. And he stops by and he's like, get in. He's like, who are you? And then I love the really quick explanation. This is like the simplest way to put it. He's like, I saw it move too.
That's all he had to say.
So eventually we kind of have our Chocolate Chip Charlie goes and does his own thing. And then it's Mo, Nicole, and this little boy, Jason, going around. And they've got access to the ice cream guy's resources because they have a private plane, and they fly to a place in Georgia where like the Stuff's factory is.
Of course it would be in Georgia.
Why do you say that?
Plead the fifth.
So in a very Halloween 3-ish moment, we get Nicole and Mo basically go undercover in the factory. They claim to be like journalists or something. Or no, I think they say they're going to shoot a commercial maybe, which makes sense given Nicole's PR background. I don't know. They make up some BS thing, but they leave the kid on the plane. And what I love about this is because almost immediately the kid is on the plane with the pilot. The pilot gets eaten by the stuff, and the kid gets out, of course. Jason does. But I love how later that night, because they basically say, like, they say to the pilot, like, hey, if he wakes up, keep him entertained or something. But then they go to the factory, and then when they're done with their thing at the factory, they don't go back to the plane to check on the kid. They're just at a hotel room. They just like forget about Jason. It's hilarious.
Maybe they think kids sleep throughout the whole night.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just really funny. And that hotel room scene is one of the best scenes too, because they get the stuff gets on Mo's face, and then Nicole has to improvise and figure out a way to get it off him. They can't pull it off, so she ends up just burning it, which is pretty great. There's some neat effects in this scene. And then one of the stuff zombies comes inside. They fight him, they push him out of the way, and then he gets attacked and killed by the stuff in a fantastic scene. It's the same, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same rotating room set from the original Nightmare on Elm Street, where Tina gets killed, because it's a really neat scene where the stuff appears to be dragging him like towards the ceiling, and just really awesome kind of gross stuff.
The grossness was put in a way that I could enjoy, because usually gross stuff is not for me, but the stuff did it nice enough.
Yeah, I think this is there's levels to grossness, and I think there's grossness in this movie, but I think it's a bit of a tame grossness. It's not over-the-top bloody. It's not... I mean, it's more gooey than bloody, but it's not like... I don't know.
It's not much blood at all, I feel like.
So then Mo and Nicole follow the stuff trucks. They follow them over to the quarry, which I assume is the location where the stuff was originally discovered.
Yes.
And at some point, Jason had gone to the factory on his own. And he got in one of those trucks, and he's in like the, what do you call that? Like the tank, like if you would fill this up with oil or gasoline or whatever. Yeah, I guess he's in the tank, and they start filling his tank up with the stuff. And this is when Mo and Nicole obviously are spying, and they're like, wait a second, this isn't even. There aren't any ingredients in this stuff. They literally just take it from the ground. This is like something alien or something like that.
Why didn't they assume it was alien and not just like shitty,
naturally occurring,
destructive fungi?
That's a fair question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, let's ask Larry Cohen. Oh, wait, he's dead. Never mind, we can't. Michael Moriarty might be alive. I don't know. Maybe he knows. The kid's probably alive, if nothing else. Whoever he is.
Dude, I wish we could talk to the dead.
So then Mo decides to steal one of the trucks, one of the stuff trucks. And it's just kind of like conveniently he like has the same suit that they're all wearing, these like sort of a kind of a hazmat suit kind of thing. Well, no, not a hazmat. I don't think there's a head thing, but it's like a yellow kind of jumpsuit. He just like already has that. And he goes about he's prepping to steal the truck, but then he hears that Jason's inside it, and he's like, "Oh, hang on, kid, I'll save." So he steals the Jason truck, and he gets Jason out of there just before there's enough stuff to kill him, and then they escape in the truck, and they are all, all three of them are pulled over by a cop, who they who they distract with the stuff, and eventually the stuff takes out the cop. And they have a line like, in a town this small, like, there's no way some people are controlled and the cops aren't. It's like, okay. So the cops are stuff people perhaps too. We don't really get confirmation of that, but it makes enough sense.
I mean, what do we know about the police history in this country?
Well, in Georgia too. I mean, yeah.
Exactly. I've seen the Green Mile.
Does that take place in Georgia?
I think so.
Okay, I've never seen that all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces on like AMC or whatever, TNT, something.
Shout out to the legendary Michael Clark Duncan.
And Sam Rockwell, why not? And Michael Jeter.
Only one of them is dead.
So, Mo then determines that, hey, we're pretty close by to this one guy that I know. He's like a retired general, and he leads a militia. And this is like the movie takes a bit of a turn here, because they go to visit Paulie's little militia area, and this is obviously, again, Paul Sorvino, who plays like a right-wing nutjob guy who's got soldiers like devoted to him. And they basically say it takes some convincing, but eventually they're like, hey, there's this stuff thing, it's. And then, like, he kind of goes in his own direction with it, and he's like, oh, this is, like, communist stuff. And it's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then we get a raid on the stuff factory led by this militia. And this is the movie where the weirdo right-wing nutjob conspiracy theorist guy is the hero. It's so bizarre, but I kind of love it in its own way.
Thank God this movie was not made in the present day.
Well, yeah, no, and I do think, like...
This could be an allegory for vaccines these days.
Oh, yeah, there would be something. But yeah, no, I do think there's, like, there's something about this movie where I, like, even though this movie is definitely satirical, definitely saying something about society in some way, I don't think it's, like, if it makes sense, I don't think it's particularly political. Like, I don't think it's not, the movie's not endorsing this dude's worldview. It's poking fun of the guy. When he, in particular, when he goes to his radio station, he says something to Chocolate Chip Charlie about not wanting coloreds on his radio or something. Like, there's no way that's not meant to be making fun of the guy.
Agreed.
But it's bizarre. It's certainly bizarre. But yeah, so they save the day. The factory is all taken care of. They leave, this giant blob monster thing. They leave it there. And then they decide to get to Atlanta to one of this general guy's radio stations, and then they're going to do their best to convince everyone else, all these other radio stations, to broadcast the same message. Think of it as this is like an InfoWars type radio setup, I guess, right?
InfoWars, yes, definitely.
Right? I mean, there's some Alex Jones vibes to this guy. But this is when Chocolate Chip Charlie shows up again, and this is when he says, like, hey, I don't want that guy. And then they're like, no, you don't get it. Like, Chocolate Chip Charlie is really popular. People love him. It's going to mean a lot if he's the one delivering the message. So they kind of agree, okay, he's going to be the guy to say that, hey, this stuff thing is horrible and it's, whatever. But then, in a scene that I both love and hate, Chocolate Chip Charlie's mouth and head just expands and expands.
Hated it.
And it looks... It's very fun. It's a fun effect, but it looks ridiculous. And this is all happening, of course, because the stuff is inside him. So he was stuff all along. And then... So he's in the sound booth or whatever with Nicole and with Jason. So the stuff comes out of him, and then it's just like, you got the stuff on the ground, you got Nicole and Jason backed up into the corner of the room trying to avoid it, and you've got Mo and Paul Sorvino trying to like break down the glass to save them. And this is kind of an underwhelming climax. This kind of just feels like a set piece that would show up in the movie, but it ends up kind of surprisingly being the climax.
Yeah, it was very underwhelming.
I don't know. I think we've got kind of weak climaxes in both films, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, this feels like this doesn't feel that much more exciting than when Jason is in the tank of the truck and the stuff is coming after him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jason. I tried to watch the last Friday the 13th movie the other night, and I turned it off after a few minutes.
The remake or
yeah, the
Jason
remake.
X?
The remake.
Okay. Remake's solid. It's good stuff. It's not great, but it's a Friday the 13th movie. It's just, it's no real worse than the others, you know.
Truth.
So with the day apparently saved, Nicole gives her little radio address. It's an apology because she's like, "Hey, I'm responsible for a lot of this because I led the hugely successful marketing campaign. Like, I hope you can forgive me, but this is what the stuff does to you." And then we get like a little montage of people like trashing billboards and stores that like have the stuff on them and stuff. And it's, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of that scene. It's a little kind of funny. And then we get a really weird scene where we find out later, I don't know how much longer later, years or months.
Months?
Yeah, but anyways, we find out that a few people from the stuff company have rebranded the stuff. Because they said like, "Hey, listen, we'll admit the product wasn't safe, but people still loved it. So we have put a safe amount of it in this other product." And what do they call it? They call it like the taste.
The taste.
That's what I've written down anyways. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound familiar, but I wrote down the taste. And yeah, they said it's balanced with dairy products, and so they claim there's not enough stuff to be harmful. But then Mo is basically like, "Well, then why won't you eat it and prove it?" He just like challenges them, and they refuse to do it. And then eventually, like he and Jason, it's kind of a weird scene. He and Jason basically force feed them the stuff. It's a bizarre ending because he basically he's just like, "Here, eat this, all of it until you die." Basically, it's just like, I don't know. But you know, this is our Mo. He's kind of he's an anti-hero, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of a sleazy kind of douchebag of a guy, but like, I don't know. I mean, well, he always wants Mo. I mean, we do know that he's greedy, if nothing else.
Just because he always wants Mo.
Yeah, he always wants Mo. He says that like 4 times. And then we see kind of like a secret, like a black market stuff deal. It's like a drug deal. So we kind of see that, even though the stuff is outlawed, it's still around. And I think that's kind of interesting. It's like, because if you think about it, like what we know about drugs, we know their harmful effects of opiates and stuff like that. And then it's like, yeah, but you can still get that stuff, with drug dealers and stuff like that. So it's like, I'm imagining, like, it sounds ridiculous because we know the stuff is like this kind of alien thing or whatever, alien monster thing that can control you. But then it's like, oh yeah, but people probably, like, even if in a world where if we had that thing and it were eventually outlawed, if people got like hooked on it, it could still be maybe, be out there on the black market. There's like something kind of weirdly, like, it's funny, but it's also kind of like realistic about this ending. I think it's effective. I think it's, and then you start to think like, okay, is the entire thing a metaphor about drugs? And I think maybe it could be. Who knows? I think that's part of it.
Small portion, for sure. Yeah.
That's yeah. There's a lot more to the movie than that. But anyways, that's pretty much the end of the movie. There is a little post-credits scene. I don't know if you stuck around for that. It's really brief. It's just like part of a commercial of the stuff. It's just this woman.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, who says enough is never enough, and she's holding up the thing. And so that is The Stuff. Josh, what did you think of Larry Cohen's The Stuff?
I think I gave it a 3 or 3.5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd after I was done. It's a solid movie.
Okay.
Probably never watch again unless someone who is cool wants to watch it with me. And I have a high standard of cool these days, especially now that I live in Boston. It's a fun movie.
So you're watching this if someone cool is hanging out with you and wants to see it. I love that's like a
I
that
would
as like a way to categorize a movie that I might see again, would watch with someone cool, but really only in those circumstances. That's
I
funny.
would really try to get Halloween 2 on the map instead of this flick.
Okay.
But it's not, it wasn't a waste of time. It didn't repulse me. I don't consider it an abomination like some previous films I have watched. This one was fine. It was a fine flick. It had good ideas and
Yes.
it was entertaining, which is critical.
I largely agree with you, excuse me. It sounds like I probably enjoyed it a little bit more than you, but I mean, I've largely the same things to say, It's got a lot of really great ideas that are, the execution is solid. It's not incredible. I don't think this is like the best movie ever or anything. But the stuff is just, it's like a lot of things. There's like some body horror. There's like a little bit of almost like 50s monster throwback because it's kind of like the Blob. There's also like a zombie element or an Invasion of the Body Snatchers element. And then it's the satire of corporate America too. And it is genuinely funny at times. Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's quite entertaining. It's well paced. It's got a number of solid effects scenes and some neat scares. I do think the climax is a letdown, as I've mentioned, and I think it kind of opens a little rough too. But I love kind of everything in that middle chunk.
I will agree there. The opening is a little rough, but the film kept me engaged.
Yeah, I don't own a The Stuff T-shirt. I know people make them because this is if you've seen the movie and everything and if you've seen the poster, it's like, yeah, this logo stands out to you because it's one of those, it's like Ghostbusters. It's the logo for the movie, but it's also the logo exists within the movie. So it's like this has made its way because the stuff it's by no means obscure. It's maybe not as well remembered as Halloween 2 or, some other big time movies, but like it's got enough of a following that like, yeah, there's going to be the stuff merchandise out there. If you look hard enough online, you might not even have to look at that hard. So I don't own a The Stuff shirt, but I'm not completely opposed to owning one. If one were to fall into my lap, it's not like I wouldn't wear it.
Good to know. Good to know.
I don't know. But anyways, I think I know the answer to this question, but Josh, which of these two movies do you prefer?
Halloween 2.
Care to elaborate?
Michael Myers is the greatest horror villain slash slasher villain. The music is just so enticing. I love Laurie Strode. The Shape haunts me in my waking hours, and sometimes I have nightmares of Michael Myers. The Stuff is a good film. It is a solid film. I do recommend it to lovers of the horror genre. But Halloween 2 it's the chef's kiss of horror.
I'm not going to go so far as to say it's the chef's, sneezing on the meal of horror, but I don't, personally, I don't think Halloween 2 is as good as you say it is, and that's fine that you have that wrong opinion. But I am going to say I prefer The Stuff. I think at the end of the day, neither of these films are perfect. The Stuff to me is just more unique. Like Halloween 2, if for no other reason, I've seen this story told, and I'm not saying just the original Halloween, but like this type of movie I've seen a bunch of times. The Stuff, it's really like Halloween 3 is honestly the only movie I would really think to compare it to, other than maybe some other Larry Cohen movies might have a resemblance here or there. But yeah, I think it's just, the Halloween 2 is, in my opinion, it's mediocre execution of something that I've seen done really well, and The Stuff is very solid execution of something that I haven't seen tried too often. And maybe I think I'll be the first to admit, I think, in my opinion, Halloween 2 suffers a bit because Halloween is so great that, it can't live up to that original film's legacy. Yeah. And maybe I'm docking Halloween 2 a bit unfairly because of that, but that's kind of my perception.
The legacy rating.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like I am more forgiving of some of the random ass Friday the 13th sequels because those are sequels to films that aren't that great. Like none of the Friday the 13th movies are that great, so like if the movie comes about in the middle of that series and it's like a little bit better than the others, I'm going to be like, yeah, this is great. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's sort of it's a bias that I'm semi-conscious of, I guess you could say.
It's real. I'm glad you can acknowledge it.
Know thyself, as Socrates once said.
And look what happened to him.
Yeah, he was eaten alive by the stuff. So, Josh, how do you think this works as a drive-in double feature.
I had a great time doing it, so I think it works fine.
Yeah, I think this is great. I do mention, you mentioned Halloween 2 is a great double feature, obviously, with the original Halloween, which I can't deny. That's definitely true. But we select these movies at random, and I obviously mentioned The Stuff, great double feature, potentially with Halloween 3. But yeah, I think these two movies together, a lot of fun. They're very different, but not like, they're both horror movies. They're both, there's a few, but it's kind of like The Stuff is it's a little sillier. A little as kind of like the follow up. Halloween 2 is a pretty serious movie as far as like a serious horror movie. Not a lot of comic relief, with the exception of the Ben Tramer scene, which is one of the funniest scenes ever. But then like The Stuff is as like a follow up is just like a goofier, sillier, but also more thought provoking in kind of a weird way too. So I like them. I like them as a double feature. 2 80s horror classics. Yeah.
I agree. That's a pretty good summary, my friend.
All right. Well, Josh, thank you again for joining me.
Well, I'll be back whenever you want.
Absolutely. You're well, apparently I don't want you to talk about Halloween 3 now. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of that conversation in the future.
I could probably do a rewatch to reshape the vision.
I think it's a solid movie. But at any rate, here's what we're doing next week. I'm joined again by a repeat guest, as we've got Feck, who was featured on our Grizzly Vice Academy episode. He will be here joining me to talk about Brian De Palma's Body Double and the film Ghoulies. Kind of an interesting mid-80s double feature there. So be sure to check that out next week, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at Drive-In Podcast. Check out our Patreon if you so desire to hear our commentary tracks for Saw, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Freddy vs. Jason, and other films. Thanks again, Josh, and thank you, listeners.
Shout out to all the listeners.
We'll catch you next time.
Be well, stay spooky.